Okay, kids, so for our next activity, we're going to be blending a little bit of science with a little bit of art and kind of dealing with the properties of matter. Our matter would be paper, crayons, and water. Okay? Materials you will need: gray paper, 2 pieces of square watercolor paper, a white crayon, and then at your tables there should be bags of colored crayons for you guys to share. Okay? Eventually you're also going to need watercolor paint, a brush, a few paper towels, a dish, and some water. Okay? And the first thing you are going to do is you're going to take the water and you're just going to put a couple drops in each color. Don't fill them up. Okay, you can see what I did there. Maybe 2 drops, 3 drops, something like that. Okay, and you're just going to let these sit for a few minutes. All right, and the water will be softening those colors up a little. Then you're going to take your white crayon, and on one of these pieces of watercolor paper, you are just going to start writing your name. Okay? Start by writing it big, and you must press hard with the crayon. And then I just want you to keep writing your name all over the paper. Some of the letters can go off the edges. Now, you might be wondering, well, I'm using a white crayon on white paper. Well, we're going to see that the properties of the crayon include something called wax. All right, just like a candle. And we're also using watercolor paint. And the properties of watercolor paint do not like the properties of the wax. And you will see in a few minutes that they resist each other. All right, so I've covered this entire paper with different sized versions of my name, Mr. H. Even though you can't see it, I know it's there. I pressed hard. Very good. Now, next thing you are going to do is your experiment. So, going to get yourself about half a dish of water. You're going to take your brush, get it nice and wet, and you're going to pick a color. In this case, actually, scratch picking a color. We'll do that for the other one. For this one, I would like you to just do black. Okay? So if you notice, I've got a lot of water in the black right now. And the longer I swish it around, the softer that paint's going to get. Now, we don't want to get it too soft. So when I go to the paper, I want a nice wet watercolor brush. Okay, this is full of water and paint. And I'm just going to paint over where I drew. And you can see that the properties of the paper are absorbent. In other words, it sucks up the watercolor paint. But the properties of the crayon, remember, we need to make sure that our paint remains watery. Okay? The wax in the crayon is resisting the water and creating a really cool looking little piece of artwork. And there you go. Notice that the paper, as it absorbs the water, it is buckling and kind of moving around and bending. Okay? That is because the water is being absorbed and changing the way all the little tiny pieces of wood that make up this paper interact with each other. Okay? Eventually, this might actually flatten out. In fact, you can see it's actually starting to settle itself now. It's actually moving. Pretty cool. Now, the next thing we're going to do is you can go ahead and dump your dirty water into the big bowls at your table. And now you're going to take your colored crayons and going different directions and different sizes, you're going to cover the entire little piece of paper with your name. Notice how they're going over top of one another. That's okay. Because this is going to be a pretty cool looking project when it's done, even though it's super easy to do. Get little and big versions of my name all over this paper, kiddos. You don't want a lot of blank white paper because that'll be boring looking when it's done. And I'm not trying to, do anything fancy. I'm just literally writing my name over and over again. Just make sure that you press nice and hard with the crayons. I'm just going to keep doing this till I feel like I've done as many as I really should fit on the paper and there's not a lot of big open white space. And there you have it. Our paper is completely covered with different little versions and big versions of our name. We are now ready to begin trying the experiment of the watercolor paint on top of this piece. Okay, kids, so as you can see, now I'm just kind of using color on top of all of my name things that I drew with the crayon. And I would prefer, don't do stripes, okay, with your watercolor paint. Kind of just work in different colors to see how they react. And you can layer colors over top of one another, okay, however you want to do it. The stripes end up looking a little silly for this because of how random we were with the names. Now, you can also see that some of these watercolor paint colors that I've chosen have been sitting since we started, and they're a lot thicker. You got to be careful because if they get too thick, you will actually be able to cover the crayon with it. So always make sure you have a decent amount of water in them. And again, you can layer, you can see it covered up the pink right there because it's so thick, but it's slowly resisting. So anyway, just work around paper, choosing whatever colors you would like to use. And again, because the waxy properties of the crayons, the paint and the water in the paint is kind of washing away. And there you have it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. It came out really, really neat. You can see some of the colors almost look like they glow. So once you have gotten both of these finished, you are going to take care of cleaning out your brush and drying it with a paper towel, closing up your watercolors, and cleaning up the rest of your area. Then and only then may you have free time.